The reason why I'm making this is because Black Ops story is confusing. The order that this goes in is Black Ops 1, Black Ops Declassified, Black Ops Cold War, and then half of the story of Black Ops 2, and then we get to Black Ops 6, with no mention of Black Ops 3 or Black Ops. It's confusing, so I put it into one video here in chronological order. This is everything that happens from the beginning of the Black Ops story all the way until Black Ops 6, and I'm going to cover a little bit of the beginning of that story as well. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy. This is the entire story of the Black Ops universe so far. The year is 1961, and our characters are sent into Cuba for something called Operation 40. So here we have Alex Mason, who you play as, Frank Woods, and Joseph Bowman sent in to do one thing and one thing alone: take down the leader of Cuba, aka Fidel Castro. And eventually they break into his compound and seemingly shoot him in the head, but what ends up happening is that was a body double, and Fidel Castro is then working with the Russians. Now you may be wondering how we know this already, and that is because at the very end of this mission, our characters go to escape on an airstrip, but the airstrip is blocked. So Frank Woods and Joseph Bowman somehow manage to escape with the help of Alex Mason. He hops off the airplane and uses a weapon to destroy everything on the airstrip, allowing our characters to escape, but unfortunately, Alex Mason gets captured. Now at this point, he is taken to a Russian prison camp known as Vorkuta, where he meets
Victor Reznov. My friend.
Now to understand what's going on here, we actually have to go back to a previous Treyarch game, Call of Duty World at War, because we are introduced to Victor Reznov in Russia during World War II. We play as a character known as Dmitry Petrenko. We wake up in a bloodied fountain and find a fellow soldier of Victor Reznov wounded there with us. Now we are directed by Reznov because his trigger finger has been either cut or shot off. So he directs us using a sniper all the way through the USSR till we are able to assassinate a high-up German official by the name of Henrik Amsel, and we are able to escape. And by the end of Call of Duty World at War, we make our way to the Reich, make our way to the roof, and end up taking it back over alongside Victor Reznov and using his help. But this isn't an end of this dynamic duo, because this is next when we are introduced to our bad guys. So at the end of World War II, Dmitry Petrenko and Victor Reznov are sent on a mission together in the basically Arctic tundra. They are being directed by two people who you're going to be familiar with, Dragovich and Kravchenko. They are told to hunt down and find a scientist by the name of Frederick Steiner. They end up finding them and all go on board to a ship. On this ship is where they find a gas you also probably are familiar with by the name of Nova 6 gas. Now, when you find this, it ends up being a trap. Kravchenko, Dragovich end up turning on you, and they end up putting you into a gas chamber and using the gas on you. You playing as Victor Reznov have to watch as Dmitry Petrenko is, well, this is what happens.
Instead of giving his life for the glory of the motherland, he died for nothing, like an animal. He should have died in Berlin.
Now, it was only shortly after this escape from the boat that Victor Reznov was actually captured, and guess what? Taken to Vorkuta. So in other words, Reznov was in there for quite a long time before Alex Mason was brought in around the year 1961. Now it's while Alex Mason is in Vorkuta that he is then brainwashed by the bad guys. In other words, Frederick Steiner, Kravchenko, Dragovich, all of those guys brainwash him to essentially be a sleeper agent. In other words, an agent that they could control via a numbers broadcast station. Now, Reznov seemingly knows what they're doing at the time, so tries to counteract that and therefore then break Alex Mason out of Vorkuta. And that's exactly what this mission is. And by the time you get to the very end of the mission, you finally end up escaping Vorkuta prison. You are driving off into the sunset. However, Victor Reznov drives off into the distance, allowing you to jump over to a train and therefore escape Vorkuta prison.
Your turn! Come on! Step 8, Reznov! Freedom! For you, Mason! Not for me! Reznov!
Now, Alex Mason works his way back to the CIA and gets his way with a new handler by the name of Jason Hudson to the Pentagon. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. Number one, the president, JFK, thinks that Alex Mason knows the bad guys. He knows Dragovich, he knows Kravchenko, and he can use that inside information to get to them and take them out. But if you're looking at things from the other side, now the bad guys have a sleeper agent on the inside of the American government. However, JFK sends Alex Mason out on a mission. All the while, Mason's having premonitions, visions of actually taking out JFK. We'll come back to that. So we started out in the year 1961. We are now on November 17th, 1963. The next mission that Frank Woods this time and Alex Mason are sent on is in the USSR. They're sent there for two reasons: to find and recover a CIA asset known as Grigory Weaver. Now, they aren't able to do so in time before Kravchenko gets his hands on him and literally stabs him in the eye. This becomes a motif that carries all the way through a lot of the Black Ops games, as we're going to see. A lot of people do get stabbed in the eye. Now, their other part of this mission is getting to Kravchenko or Dragovich and stopping them on this mission, as well as stopping them from shooting a rocket at us. So we do manage to save Grigory Weaver. However, the bad guys manage to get away, but we do end up stopping the rocket. Now, just throwing this in there, I do have a video on this, and the things that I have videos on will be linked down in the description, but it was 5 days later that JFK got assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. And by the very end of the campaign, it is very, very heavily implied that Alex Mason, at the very least, was somehow involved with this, showing us pictures of Mason being there and knowing details about it that no one else would.
Ascension.
Now, what is super interesting about this is that after that date, there is a 5-year gap before the next mission, taking place in the year 1968. And this time, we're going to Nam.
Woods, you look like having shit.
I'm so tough for shit, Joe. It's not, baby.
It's good to see you.
So why are these characters in Vietnam? Well, Woods is just there as part of the MACV SOG unit alongside Hudson, but Mason is brought in because there are rumors of Russians being in Vietnam. So after defending Khe Sanh, they then move into Hue City. Why there? Well, they are looking for a Russian defector, and as we find out, we are actually well acquainted with who we believe is the Russian defector.
Mason.
Reznov. How'd you get out of Vorkuta? Never thought I'd see you alive.
Not you, my friend.
So essentially, we end up getting a dossier that tells us about Dragovich's plan to attack the West. Now, one of the things that they find out about is a Nova 6 shipment in a downed airplane in Laos. So our team is sent in to, 1, go look if there's any bad guys there, and 2, retrieve the Nova 6 gas. However, when they get there, the bad guys are sitting there in waiting. Now, at this point, we are in Laos with Alex Mason, Frank Woods, and Joseph Bowman. We are then captured and taken into captivity by not just the Vietnamese, but also the Russians. And under the order of the Russians, this leads to one of the most iconic, best, and not only that, proof of how badass Frank Woods truly is.
Последний шанс. Играй или умирай.
You don't scare me. Communist piece of shit.
Bowman! Bowman! You fucking son of a bitch!
Next.
I'm gonna kill you all!
Don't you touch me!
What? Shit. Motherfuckers. I'm gonna make them pay.
You! No talk. Play!
What's the plan? I'm thinking.
No talk!
One chance, Mason. We'll take it. Okay.
Bang! You can't kill me! You shoot, GI, you shoot! Play.
6 and 8 o'clock.
Thus marks the end of Joseph Bowman, leaving Frank Woods and Alex Mason behind. When they end up escaping this foxhole, they make their way and find a helicopter. They take that helicopter to one of Kravchenko's compounds in Vietnam. Upon getting there, they end up running into Kravchenko, and this is what happens.
I should have killed you in Vorkuta.
Got you now, you son of a bitch.
You die in the city.
What?
So Woods ends up saving Alex Mason, and as it appears, Woods jumps out the window with Kravchenko. There's an explosion, so seemingly both of them are dead. But as we know, that's not what happened. We'll get to what happened in a minute. But as Alex Mason comes to, he looks around the room and ends up finding about the Nova 6 facility known as Rebirth Island. He goes there solo, or with the help of a friend, to track down and deal with Frederick Steiner. Now, while this was happening, Jason Hudson and Gregory Weaver are on a mission of their own. They start out by going and interrogating another doctor by the name of Daniel Clark in Kowloon City. When they get there, they end up finding out about another facility by the name of Mount Yamantau. After Daniel Clark passes away and gets shot, they then move on to Mount Yamantau. They go through this facility, and by the very end, they find out about another facility by the name of Rebirth Island. So both Hudson and Weaver, as well as Alex Mason, are separately making their way to Rebirth Island. But the person to get there first, or people, or person, you'll see what I mean in a second, is Alex Mason.
We are here. Rebirth Island, source of Dragovich's poison.
So Alex Mason, alongside seemingly Victor Reznov, make their way to Rebirth Island and work their way or sneak their way through the facility. Upon getting to a central room, they find themselves head to head with Frederick Steiner. And, well, someone gets their revenge.
Killing me will not stop Nova.
I do not care about no one. My name is Victor Reznov, and I will have my revenge.
But here's the thing, Jason Hudson and Gregory Weaver get there at a very similar time, just a little bit behind Alex Mason. And by the time they get to Frederick Steiner, they see something very, very different.
Mason! We have to stop him now! Damn, it's bulletproof! Mason, what are you doing? We need him alive! Stand down! Stand down!
My name is Victor Reznov, and I will have my
revenge! Mason, no!
So this is actually where the beginning of the Black Ops 1 campaign starts off, the interrogation room. Inside the interrogation room, we have Alex Mason being interrogated after the events of Rebirth Island. He is being interrogated by Jason Hudson and Gregory Weaver about the numbers inside of his head, trying to figure out what the numbers actually mean. And one of the ways that Jason Hudson was able to break through is in telling Alex Mason this entire time that he has been seeing Victor Reznov, it has only been inside of his head, because Victor Reznov, like the bad guys, also tried to get inside of Alex Mason's head and do the right thing, stop him from doing these unspeakable actions that the Russians wanted him to. Now, throughout this deprogramming sequence that Jason Hudson and Gregory Weaver do, eventually they break through to Alex Mason, and Alex Mason realizes that in every state capital across the United States, Russia has put in a sleeper agent, and somewhere known as the Rusalka, they have put in a numbers broadcasting station. And now our good guys need to go stop it. And well, I could go through the whole mission, but to make it short, this is what ends up happening.
Dragovich! Yes! I'm gonna kill you! my mind! Quiet! You don't know anything! It's like to turn me against my own! It's like to make me kill my own president! Right? Come on, Mason!
So we drown Dragovich, we know that that happened, and then we escape alongside Hudson, coming up to the surface and grabbed by Gregory Weaver. We save the day, stop the numbers broadcast station, but still the weird part is there's a bunch of sleeper agents all across America at this point. There's just no numbers broadcast to actually control them. That is something that really hasn't been answered to this date. Now, speaking of unanswered questions, you may be wondering what happened with Frank Woods after he jumped out that window. Well, we have an answer for that as well.
Kravchenko, when I sliced that bastard open, he saved everyone's ass. But he comes to first. Boom. Welcome to the Hanoi Hilton. 6 months later, they shipped me over to Da Nang. And this fucking place made the Hilton look good. Lost 17 of my group. By 72, it was just me. I was not gonna die in a fucking swamp!
So for 4 years, Frank Woods was held captive into the year 1972 when he escaped from the Hanoi Hilton. So then we do have this rather large gap between 72 and 75 where missions start to pick up in the game known as Black Ops Declassified. Now, really, there's only one of these missions that actually has an overall impact on the Black Ops story, and that one doesn't happen till later on. But just know that Mason and Woods were going on missions from the year 1975 all the way up until 1982, which again, we'll come back to. Now, just one little side note, this is a very, very side thing. It's not even in the main game, but there is intel stating that in 78, Special Agent Ryan Jackson, the person who wrote all the files in Black Ops Declassified, actually wanted to kill Hudson and Mason at the hands of someone by the name of Jonathan Blank, potentially Price. In other words, Captain Price. This never, of course, came to be. Things were smoothed over, and all of these characters continued to work with the CIA, but I just wanted to point this one out because it's a very weird stage in the CIA's history within Black Ops. This brings us to the year 1981, when Black Ops Cold War takes place. Once again, we have Woods, Mason, and Hudson, but this time working with someone new by the name of Russell Adler. So to understand kind of the origins of Adler and how he kind of got into the entire Perseus thing, we have to go back to the year 1968. In 1968, Russell Adler was also in the Vietnam War, similar to Woods and Mason, but he was working on something else in an operation called Operation Fracture Jaw. At this time, this is where he got closest to apprehending Perseus, this mysterious figure who is believed to have people inside the CIA. However, he slipped through his fingers, and after this point, Adler was one of the lead men on the team trying to hunt down, find, and capture or kill Perseus. That is why, once again in the year 1968, Russell Adler was sent in to once again Rebirth Island, this time catching and apprehending Stitch, who is believed to be working with Perseus. But as it turns out, he wasn't at the time working with Perseus. He was working directly with Colonel Lev Kravchenko, who we'll talk about in a bit. But Adler still interrogated Stitch, even going as far as, once again, stabbing him in the eye, and then throwing him into the gulag. At this point, he is disowned by Kravchenko, and this then pushes Stitch to then go and work with Perseus after being disowned by Kravchenko. Now, fast forward to the year 1981. We now are hearing more and more during the Cold War about Perseus, and the president himself puts some new soldiers on the job of tracking him down and stopping him.
CIA clandestine special officer Russell Adler. He's one of the few people who even come close to capturing Perseus.
Mr. Adler, why should we take this Perseus threat seriously?
You don't have to, sir.
Yeah, then a lot of innocent people are gonna die.
Why do you say that?
Sir.
Every time Perseus has come into play, it's shifted the balance of the Cold War. After 13 years of silence, if he's active, something big is gonna happen. Something that will affect the free world.
Give Mr. Adler whatever he wants. Gentlemen, you've been given an important task. Protecting our very way of life from a great evil. There is no higher duty. There is no higher honor. And while few people will know of your struggles, rest assured, the entire free world will benefit. I know you won't fail us.
Now, the whole reason why we're having this meeting to begin with is because Alex Mason, Frank Woods, and Russell Adler went on a mission where they stopped someone known as Arash Kadivar, someone who was involved in a real-world event called the Iran hostage crisis. As they found out, one of the people working behind this was none other than Perseus. Now, it was also on this mission where Russell Adler saw an opportunity. He saw a wounded Russian soldier who he believed to be working with Perseus. So he brought this soldier in, a soldier known as Bell, and used something known as MK Ultra to try to brainwash him to use whatever was inside of Bell's head against Perseus. So unlike Black Ops 1, where Alex Mason, our character, was brainwashed by the Russians, this time our character Bell is brainwashed by the American, aka Russell Adler. So Bell, now brainwashed, goes on a mission with Frank Woods and Alex Mason. They go to a Russian training facility, and by the time they get to the very end and get to a terminal, they learn about something called Operation Greenlight, an actual American project that basically placed nukes all across Europe as a failsafe. Therefore, if there was an invasion, they could stop it with said nuke. Now, as it turns out, Jason Hudson knew all about this. However, our characters, Frank Woods, Mason, Adler, did not. So there's a little bit of a confrontation.
You knew the nuke was from Greenlight. Didn't tell us. What else are you hiding? Maybe I can knock the truth out of you.
You might want to rethink that, Woods.
Everybody stand down. This little pissing match isn't gonna help us catch Perseus.
Why didn't you tell us it was an American nuke? He needed us to clean up his mess. The bastard's been lying to us all along.
It's not a lie. It's an omission of fact. One of the Greenlight nukes went offline 8 weeks ago. We suspected it was Perseus, but couldn't confirm it.
So we know Perseus has a nuke, we just don't know what he's going to do with it yet. So our characters Alex Mason and Frank Woods are sent to Mount Yamantau by an inside man on the KGB, finding out that Perseus has some sort of black site set up there. And that's what they do, just like Hudson and Weaver did in Black Ops 1. Now this time, Mason and Woods are going back into Mount Yamantau. Now, the question is, why was he in Yamantau? And the answer was, this is where Dragovich was keeping the information on all of those sleeper agents that we talked about in Black Ops 1. Remember how Mason was turned into a sleeper agent? Well, yeah, there was one in every single state in the USA, and Perseus wanted that information. So when Mason and Woods went to Yamantau, they went to go grab that information. Turns out, Perseus erased it all, and the only place that it was kept is in the KGB headquarters in the LaBianca building. So they used Dmitry Belikov, who was working inside the KGB, to help them break in and find this information.
Comrade Belikov, have a seat. General Secretary Brezhnev has taken an interest in the new security development. There's a mole within the KGB. The committee wants someone from the first chief directorate to oversee Colonel Kravchenko's investigation.
So no, you're not seeing that wrong. That is Colonel Kravchenko now, as well as Imran Zakhaev. Yes, the character from the Modern Warfare franchise. This is the first time we actually got to see a direct crossover between the two. But as they say, there is a mole within the KGB, and as we know, that is Dmitry Belikov. But they don't know that. So Belikov helps us break into the KGB and break into the vault to find information stored on their mainframe. And indeed, the mainframe gave us a list of sleeper agents, one of which goes by the name of Theodore Hastings, who just so happened to work on Operation Greenlight. Where is he? He just so happens to be in Cuba, the same location as the very first mission in Black Ops 1. So all of our characters, who, by the way, we haven't yet talked about, so let's go there. The team. First off, we have Lawrence Sims. Think of him as Adler's right-hand man and one of the people he was in Vietnam alongside. Then we have Alazar Azule, or Lazar for short. He was selected by Mossad, later brought to the CIA, and handpicked by Russell Adler to help hunt down Perseus. Then we have Helen Park. She was a part of MI6 and was placed on protection of 2 British scientists. We don't know who they were, but at the same time, Russell Adler, a member of the CIA, was placed under the same role. He obviously got close with Helen Park, and because of which, they decided to work together to stop Perseus as well. Now, why am I telling you this? Because our whole team goes into Cuba and tries to hunt down Theodore Hastings, and they do so, and when they get there, they're just a little bit too late. Perseus was just there earlier and actually shot him. And what we find out through the scientist is that Perseus actually has the codes to every single Operation Greenlight nuke and is planning on detonating them and blaming it on the United States, therefore starting essentially World War III. Now in this video, I am only going to be talking about the canon, and yes, these are confirmed canon endings for the Black Ops games. Starting with Black Ops Cold War, the first thing that you need to know is at the end of this mission, you are trying to escape atop the roof. And in doing so, you are left with a choice. You can only save one of 2 people, either Park or Lazar, and it has been confirmed that the canon ending of Black Ops Cold War, you save Park and Lazar is left behind, and presumably dead.
Ground team, make contact in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6,
Move your ass, Bell.
5.
We're nearly out of time.
3, 2, 1.
So because of the information that they found out about Perseus and the information that Perseus has on the nukes, they need to ramp things up and figure out where Perseus is and where he's launching these nuke codes from. So they ramp up MK Ultra on Bell and use a little bit of brainwashing to figure out what is going on. Now, it is at this time where Bell figures out what's going on because essentially Adler tells him, and after this, Bell discovers the location of Perseus and the codes, and that is on a little island called Solovetsky. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, really nothing special happens here other than the fact that they go to this island and stop the nukes from being launched. That is about it. Now, I want to be clear, because of this, Perseus is still in the wind. We have not captured Perseus, at least yet. We'll get to that. But the one thing that does happen at the very end of the game is this.
Arctic air. Clears the head, doesn't it? Bell, you made 2 extraordinary sacrifices to stop Perseus. One was without your knowledge. The other, you made that decision of your own accord. I just want you to know that this little thing that's happened with you and me, it was always for the greater good. You're a goddamn hero, you know that, kid? Heroes have to make sacrifices. That's why when I ask you for one more, I hope you understand. It was never personal.
So Russell Adler caps Bell. We don't really know why, maybe to cover his tracks, maybe for another reason altogether, but even after saving the day, Bell seemingly gets put down, but it's what happens next that is more interesting, because we actually have to go away from Adler for a second, because in the year 1982, Woods and Mason are sent on one more mission. This is in Black Ops Declassified, if you didn't know. Now, in this mission, they are sent after the leader of the Menendez drug cartel. No, not Raul Menendez, his father, Jose Luis Menendez. They go in, take out Jose Luis Menendez, and let Raul Menendez get away. This is going to come into play years later. So we'll get to that, but first we got to go back to Russell Adler, because between the years 81 and 84, we don't really know where he went, but during 84, he is still hunting down Perseus when he gets some information about someone else, someone by the name of Stitch, and based off of the intel that he's getting, he believes that Stitch may be creating Nova 6 gas, just like he did on Rebirth Island. So he goes into a mall where he believes that the Nova 6 gas is staged, but as it turns out, it is a trap, and Stitch ends up quite literally kidnapping Russell Adler. Now, at one point, Stitch ends up going back to Mount Yamantau and finds out information on reprogramming people and the numbers stations, and once again uses the brainwashing on Russell Adler. Now, essentially, Stitch, working as Perseus, is trying to brainwash the world and make everyone a sleeper agent, essentially. Thankfully, though, Hudson, Mason, Woods get their hands on Russell Adler and are managed to reverse the brainwashing, therefore stopping Russell Adler from completely destroying Verdansk, and in turn, they are able to track down Stitch. And by the very end, this is what ends up happening.
12, 19, 14.
Don't waste your breath. I'm clean.
I figured. It was worth a try. My work was finished before your little act of rebellion. This changes nothing.
Tell me where Perseus is.
You never understood. Perseus was never one man. It's an ideal. Bigger than any of us.
You'll spare me your horse shit. Where the fuck is Perseus?
Right here. Cancer took him in 83. My life no longer matters. Do what you will. Finish what you started on Rebirth Island. My broadcast was complete. I have changed the world, Adler. In ways you can't even imagine.
Now, just a little side note here, if you ever hear the words, "we've got a job to do," that was Russell Adler's trigger for brainwashing Bell. And in fact, Hudson even uses that audio cue on Adler to re-brainwash him after Perseus already did.
We've got a job to do. Remember, we had a job to do. Told you we had a job to do. It ain't done yet, not by a long way.
We've got a job to do.
I just wanted to throw that in there in case during Black Ops 6 or any other Black Ops games you hear that term, you might want to know what's going on. Now, after the year 1984, Russell Adler goes completely off the grid. We do not know what happens to him until the year 1991 when Black Ops 6 takes place. However, there is a bunch of story for our other two characters, Frank Woods and Alex Mason. So their story picks up in the year 1986. Once again, Frank Woods has been captured, but this time by someone new, Raul Menendez, a name that you may have recognized from before because he is the leader of the Menendez drug cartel, taking over for his father, who, believe it or not, Frank Woods and Alex Mason actually took out. So Jason Hudson ends up coming to Alaska, in other words, Alex Mason's home, because he has retired from the CIA. However, Jason Hudson appears and asks him to make a return, even though his son David Mason doesn't want him to go because his dad promised that he'd never go back. It's for Uncle Frank, and Uncle Frank needs saving. So they go to the Cubongo River and end up rescuing Frank Woods from a shipping container to find out that the reason why he was there was none other than Raul Menendez. So their next job is to track down and find out what is going on with Raul Menendez, and they do so, but first they go to Afghanistan, where they actually run into another old bad guy by Lev Kravchenko, or Colonel Kravchenko as we talked about in Black Ops Cold War. They end up running into him and, well, this is what ends up happening.
I left you to rot in Vietnam, Sergeant Woods. You should be dead.
Well, nobody told me. My buddy Raman tells me you're doing business with a Nicaraguan named Raul Menendez. What do you do for him? You believe in an eye for an eye? Huh? Menendez wants to see the world burn. That's not gonna happen. Oh. He's more powerful than you know. He even has people in the CIA.
Bullshit! This guy's fucking with us.
So Kravchenko is killed, and we are even told that Menendez has people within the CIA. But still, we need to hunt him down. So we track him down to Nicaragua. And when we do, we get inside of his manor, and eventually Woods sees Menendez. And when he does, he snaps because Menendez took him captive. And when he sees him, he throws a grenade. However, the grenade goes into a room and doesn't kill Menendez. It kills his sister, Josefina. But the weird part about this is after the grenade goes off, Jason Hudson tells us that it did indeed kill Menendez.
Frank, you okay?
Get him out of here.
What happened, Hudson? Where's Menendez?
That's him, in a body bag. From this point on, the day never happened.
So this brings us 3 years forward to the Panama City invasion. Frank Woods and Alex Mason are sent in to get a high-value target. This target, we find out, is Manuel Noriega. Now, we don't know this at the time, but he is Raul Menendez's right-hand man. And eventually, someone comes in over the radio. It is Hudson. He says that the objective has changed and we now have a different target who we are going to exchange. But when we get to that target, it is Frank Woods staring down a sniper scope at someone in a hood. And Hudson says over the radio that this is Raul Menendez to take the shot. Kill him. Kill him now.
They're bringing the son of a bitch out.
Confirm visual.
He even has people in the CIA.
End this now, Woods. Take the headshot. Shoot him in the fucking head.
No!
So it is at this time you have 2 options. Number 1, you can shoot him in the knee, and this causes Alex Mason to actually live and go into hiding for a long time, till the year 2025, a long, long time. Option number 2 is you shoot him in the head and he is dead. Based off of what the developers are currently telling us, the canon ending is shooting him in the head. But still, I very strongly do not believe that. Just because, remember, the truth lies. And on top of that, down in the description, I do have a video going over the evidence that he is still alive. But no matter what you do, this is what happens next in Black Ops 2.
Mason!
Fool.
You bastard!
Menendez!
So Woods is left crippled, his best friend seemingly dead, and moving forward, once again, Frank Woods is captured. However, this time we go into a building. He is not able to walk as his knees are completely crippled from Raul Menendez. But as we see, Menendez is not done. He makes them make a choice. Either Hudson dies or Woods dies, and Hudson manages to sacrifice himself, leaving just David Mason, Alex Mason's son, and Frank Woods, or Uncle Woods, left alive. And Menendez tells them that they shall suffer how he suffered.
I will not kill you, boy. Not like Woods. You will suffer with me. And then one day, you will see this pendant again. And you will remember everything you saw and felt tonight. You will remember all the years of anger and pain. And when you do, David, please, come to me.
Dad. No! Dad!
And that is essentially it. In 1989, Frank Woods is crippled, Alex Mason seemingly dead, Hudson dead, and Russell Adler completely in the wind. And that is where Black Ops 6 comes along. Our story picks up Frank Woods is in a wheelchair. We are working with a bunch of new people within the CIA, and there's a mysterious figure or figures or group known as Pantheon that we need to hunt down. I want to be clear, the reason why I'm not continuing this story with the rest of Black Ops 2 in 2025 or going into Black Ops 3 or 4 into the future is because Black Ops 6 is going to decide what the rest of the canon is. Whether or not they prove that indeed Alex Mason is dead or not changes the outcome of the next games. Whether or not Raul Menendez shows up and comes back changes what happens next in the Black Ops universe. So really, up until this point, this has been the entire Black Ops story so far. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love it if you could hit that like button. New to the channel, subscribe, turn notifications on. I have a ton more story videos coming once Black Ops 6 is actually out. But for now, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.